Hundreds of firearms have been reported stolen to Lexington police this year, and the department says the vast majority are being taken from the same target.
Our Jeremy Tom sat down with police to talk about the issue and how the public can help prevent these kinds of thefts. It is our top story at 10.
Between the months of January and July, Sergeant Guy Miller says 278 guns were reported stolen in Lexington. 250 of those were taken from a vehicle. Miller says the people perpetrating these crimes are doing it for a reason, and that could have serious consequences down the line.
They might be doing it for a monetary value, so they might get that firearm and then go sell it to another criminal that might not have the best intentions.
Sergeant Miller says they believe these weapons are often being stolen simply because offenders are seizing on an opportunity. If a criminal can look into your vehicle and find something that might be of value to them, odds are they're gonna take it.
When a gun does get taken, police are on the lookout, now aided by their Fusus system.
If someone does break into your vehicle and steal a piece of property, and that detective, he can look at if there's any registered cameras there.
If there is one, police can make direct contact with a homeowner who may have captured the criminal.
And that can just speed up that case. That detective doesn't have to go out there.
Miller notes that it is your right to carry a weapon with you, but the department asks that you take it out of your vehicle at the end of the night.
We just want you to know we have seen 51 firearms stolen just last month alone, and 90% of those are from vehicles.
At least, Miller says it should be out of sight and in a secure compartment. If you don't take the steps, the stats suggest you'll be taking a chance. In Lexington, Jeremy Toms, WKYT.
Sergeant Miller says that you should also write down or take pictures of your weapon's serial number, make, and model. He says it is the easiest way to try and get that gun back, and that's what an officer is going to ask you for if it's stolen.